Okay, so for this week's blog post prompt, we were asked to use an assessment tool in a teaching setting and to blog about how that experience went. I chose Menti. We used it in class once and I thought it was a great tool. Some of the other reasons I chose it, first of all, I had to really think of what type of teaching experience I was going to use. I think most of you know that I'm not a teacher. I work at the university, and most of the work I do with students is sort of in a one-on-one meeting type setting. And I think most of these assessment tools work better in a group setting. So I had to find an opportunity to use a tool that way. So I looked through my coworkers' calendars and I saw that there was a group work and presentations workshop today. So those workshops are for any students who are interested in, sort of brushing up their study skills and learning strategies. So this one, the topic was group work and also presentation skills. So I thought that Menti actually fit really well into that topic because I thought that students might be interested in using Menti as a tool in their own presentations. So they would learn the content of the workshop, but they'd also take away a cool tool for their toolbox. And then another reason I chose it is because I liked sort of the flexibility it had to not only have the multiple choice type quiz questions, but I also wanted to sort of see where students were at in terms of how they felt about group work and presentations. So I liked the idea of the word clouds and the open-ended questions as well as the quiz questions. So I like that Menti can do all of that. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of using Mentimeter. So one of the things I really liked is that you can log in through Google Chrome. I really like to keep sort of all my apps in one place, easy login. But it did present a challenge when I tried to do this using the presentation laptop in the Learning Lounge that I was getting the presentation in, and they had Internet Explorer on that computer, and I was having a lot of trouble opening up the Menti through Internet Explorer. I finally just switched to Firefox and it worked fine, but so just a warning, you may have trouble with Internet Explorer. Mentimeter is very user-friendly. So I'm going to just show you how easy it is to create a new presentation. So click on New Presentation, name it, blog, sample, we'll call it, create presentation, and then you create the questions. So you can choose from a lot of different types of questions, whether you want multiple choice, word cloud, which I really like because that allows students to share their ideas. You can do the quiz, which is a timed way of asking questions, and also you show which ones are right and which ones are wrong. So this one's sort of similar to Kahoot. You can do scales, which is rating things, open-ended questions, which I think really allows for good discussion. So just some of the different question types there are. Once you decide what type you'd like, you just click on it. You put your question in the question box. You put your answers in the alternatives. Remove myself here. So this one is actually just an opinion. So you'll see how many people chose Trump and chose Clinton. But if you change it to a quiz, then it actually has incorrect and correct. So you can choose Trump as correct and Clinton as incorrect, and then the students participating will be able to see their results. One thing that I felt was a drawback was that it's really hard to test your presentation. So there is a show presentation up here, but you don't really get a sense without having people log in and using the code. You don't really get the sense of what's going to happen. So I'll show you who won the election, and then we have 18 seconds to kill here until it closes. But I guess my point is that you can't really see what's going to happen when people log in and see what it looks like and get a sense for it until you have the students there. However, I told the students that they were my test group, and that we might have some hiccups. and we actually didn't have any hiccups, so it went just fine. So although I was a little bit nervous about that, it turned out to be just fine. And then another drawback, or another thing I worried about, is if my users would have technology, because just you never know, right? They were just students who signed up for this presentation, but I needn't have worried about that because all of my 10 users had at least one device, and I would say most of them had more than one device. Another drawback to this free version is that you can only have 5 questions per mentee. So how I sort of overcame that is I had 3 different mentees just for one 45-minute presentation. So it would have been nicer and smoother to have them all in one, but it turned out just fine. But it's only $7.99 a month, so I would, if someone's going to be using this tool a lot, I would almost say it's worth it. I used Mentimeter 3 ways, and all of them were formative methods of assessment. So assessment can test knowledge, but it can also test attitudes and feelings, and that's what I wanted to get from this group of students. So in the pre-quiz, I asked them how they were feeling about group work, and whether or not they felt comfortable with it, and what they needed to work on. So for example, the first question I asked, what words would they use to describe their past group work experiences? And I saw lots of positives and lots of negatives. So they said things like cooperation, coordinating. They also said things like stressful and frustrating. So it was really good to get their opinions on that. So opinions and feelings and things like that. I think in the article, Every Teacher's Guide to Assessment, Ronan labeled this as confidence indication. The second way I used Menti was as a quiz to see how much they had learned from the presentation. So this post-quiz, just give you one example of that as well. So after I had done the presentation, I did a Menti, which was a quiz, so they got right and wrong, they were correct and incorrect, and also they were timed, and we had a leaderboard, so they could see who was doing well in the quiz. So that was great as well. And then the third way that I used Menti was to evaluate our programming. So I asked them what is one thing that they learned from the workshop, and I was really happy with the open-ended answers. I also asked them if they feel more comfortable now as a result of giving the workshop. So to me, I see this sort of as a way of evaluating our offerings in the learning environment. And in the article, How Technology Can Change Assessment, the authors talked about adaptive learning systems. And I feel like, we can use assessment to help make sure that the learning environment is the best possible. I also asked students, interestingly enough, how they felt about Menti and whether or not they'd use it. And I got an overwhelming yes, they would use that in their own presentation. So I think that's very positive. Overall, I think students responded very well to Menti. During the workshop, I asked them some questions to get them to engage in discussion, and they were very reluctant to do so. I think only 2 out of 10 actually participated in the face-to-face discussion, where 9 out of 10 participated in the Menti and actually gave some good responses. Also, I think that their responses to the questions about the Menti at the end, the fact that they're going to use it in their own presentations, I think shows that it was indeed a good tool and it did help their learning experience. So I give Mentimeter an A+, and I have already recommended it to my colleagues for use in our workshops.